Hello, hello, hello. So you want 100?
Yeah, I'm on right now. Just save.
Made sure they gave you 2 hot mustards.
All right.
Good morning, Tom.
Hey, how you doing?
It's another lovely day.
Certainly is.
Yes, I should eat these. Close that body.
All right, it looks like it's post time here. We might as well get started. How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right. All right. So on Monday, we started talking about boiler accessories. We'll kind of do a recap of what we covered real quick, and then we'll finish up on boiler accessories tonight. Next week, there's no class on Monday because of the 4th of July. And the schedule shows you taking quiz number 1 on Wednesday. Everybody in agreement with that? So what I'd like to do tonight is after I cover boiler accessories, I'm going to review the quiz with you. All right. The first quiz is 35 questions. All the tests are multiple choice. All right. All the test questions come off the state exam. Everybody get that? So if you do well on the tests, you'll pass the written exam. Everybody understand? All right. The oral exam for you is going to be more studying the homeworks because the oral exam isn't multiple choice. You got to actually talk to the inspector and explain your answer. So that's the plan for tonight. Any questions?
Will there be any waterboarding involved in the oral exam?
No, there is no torture. There's many guys in here that have been through it. They survived. They don't look beat up. They don't look wounded in any way. Everybody's anxious when you take an exam like that. You know, that's normal. If you're not nervous, then you're probably not human, you know. The reality is that everybody's a little bit anxious. So, but if you prepare yourself, you study the material, you'll be good to go. Is that right, Joe?
Yeah, it's not that bad. Depends on who you get too, though.
Yeah. Some of the inspectors can be a little more intense than others. But we'll talk to you about that before that time comes. The test itself is a Microsoft Word document. You can actually write on it, highlight the correct answer, and email it back to me. All right. The way this class is set up, it's Zoom. I don't know what you're doing at home. All right. But the point is this, I'm going to send you the test tonight. All right. You want to get it done before the weekend? You can get it done before the weekend. All right. The only thing I ask is that you get it back to me the end of the day on next Wednesday. All right. July 6th. All right. So you can get it back anytime before that if you like. If you're intimidated by a Word document, you can also write the numbers 1 through 35 on a piece of paper and put the correct selection next to the corresponding number. Take a picture of it with your cell phone and email it to me. Does everybody kind of get that? All right. I'll be here a week from tonight if you have any questions or problems. All right. But technically, next Wednesday is the day you're going to take the test. Are there any questions? Excellent. Excellent. All right. Now, again, I apologize to a lot of you. I know many of you people are in the business and you don't need to be told, you know, the difference between a gate valve and a globe valve. I just want to remind you that this is what they ask about on the state exam. All right. So it seems like I go over stuff a lot. It's just because this is what they're asking. All right. So just like the homework, they're going to ask you, tell me what you know about a gate valve. Tell me what you know about a globe valve. Tell me what you know about a check valve. All right. All right. I haven't seen any questions on butterfly valves, ball valves, all right? So I don't think you'll have any problem with anything else, all right? On every test, they ask, what does OS and Y stand for, all right? Outside stem and yoke, it is the most commonly used valve in this industry, all right? That valve indicates its position by the position of the stem, all right? They're going to ask you, where are you required to have a check valve? All right. Every boiler has a check valve between the feed pump and the boiler proper. All right. You and I probably shouldn't be welding on high pressure boilers or pressure vessels. Is everybody in agreement? However, if something is threaded or flanged, we're certainly qualified to take that stuff apart and reassemble it. Has anybody ever done any pipe fitting? All right. Dave, would you say it's pretty basic stuff? Once you do it once, you're familiar with it?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is if you have to cut and thread the pipe itself to
Yeah.
put it together. That's really it.
Okay, good, good. Yeah. I think everybody understands that anything attached to the boiler will either be flanged, threaded, or welded. All right. And I think also everybody understands that boilers are hot. Steam is hot. Boiler piping is going to expand and contract. All right. That should come as no surprise to you. I just discussed some of the methods they accommodate expansion and contraction. All right. They usually don't come up on the state exam. All right. The other valve they love to talk about are boiler stop valves, sometimes called main steam stop valves. Every boiler should have one, all right? But the big question they're going to ask you is, when do you need more than one? All right. Boilers connected to a common header with other boilers that have manholes are required to have two stop valves. All right. It's the only provision in the ASME code that allows for personal protection. In other words, you can get in that boiler with other boilers operating attached to that header. All right. Most arrangements will look something like this: a stop valve right at the boiler, a second between the boiler and the header, this being the main header. All right. If it's equipped with the bypass, we already discussed the purpose of the bypass, right? That's to equalize the pressure across this valve and to pre-warm this section of the pipe. All right. The free blow drain is pictured here. And the definition of a free blow drain is that the pipe, the end of the pipe, is visible to us. It doesn't terminate below the floor level in a tank. We can see it. All right. The non-return valve is optional. All right. So they don't have many questions about this. But this is a nice feature, all right? The non-return valve, while it can act as an isolation valve, if the stem is screwed down, when it's backed off, it will automatically isolate the boiler if the boiler pressure goes below the header pressure, all right? That's a nice feature, all right? The question on the state exam asks, the direction of steam flow through the non-return valve. is out of the boiler only. All right. That's the only way steam can flow when this valve is in play. We talked about blowdown valves. All right. All right. You got to have a way to drain the boiler. All right. Let water out of it. All right. The blowdown pipe should be attached to the lowest point on the water side of the boiler. All right. That pipe should be exposed, which means it shouldn't be insulated, because we would like to know if it has a hole in it or a leak. All right. Again, the big question is, when do I need more than one blowdown valve? And it's on any boiler that operates at 100 PSI or over. All right. You can have two slow opening valves, but they allow one quick opening valve to make it easier for you to blow down the boiler. If that's what you have, then the quick opening valve will be closest to the boiler, the inside valve. All right. On the state exam, they'll ask you, give me 4 reasons why we blow down boilers or we need bottom blowdown valves. All right. All right. Often they'll give you 3 legitimate reasons and 1 bogus reason and ask you which one doesn't belong. Does everybody kind of get the idea how they're going to do that? And you'll see the questions on the quiz tonight, because we'll review it. All right. Everybody understands the concept of surface or continuous blowdown. All right. And we discussed a couple of cardinal rules about blowing the boiler down. The one they ask all the time, when is the best time to blow down the boiler? And what they're looking for is full load, full pressure, low load. All right. That usually means off shift, typically nights. All right. You kind of get the idea. All right. They would prefer that you only blow down the boiler if you are in visible line of sight with the gauge glass. If you can't see the gauge glass, they recommend you wait till there's 2 people to blow down the boiler. One person can give hand signals to the other one. All right, you work out the details yourself. All right. All right. Other than that, they tell you to never blow down the water walls on a water tube boiler while there's a fire in the boiler. But the one thing that all inspectors love to hear, you're never, ever going to walk away once the blowdown valves are open. All right. You're not going to answer the phone. All right. You hear the microwave ding. You're not going to walk away. All right. Your favorite show is coming on. You're not going to walk away from an open blowdown valve. All right.
So I have a question. I have one question about the water walls. Would that be the mud drum? So whenever there's a fire, if the blowdown is on the mud drum, you shouldn't blow it down?
Well, no. Let me, that's a legitimate question. Let me show you exactly what I mean. All right. Remember we talked about that boiler at Salem Harbor? Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Just bear with me 1 second. If you look closely at this picture, this piece of pipe right here, the large diameter pipe, these tubes are what we call water wall tubes. They come down into a header, all right? A place where they all gather together. And off of that, there'll be lines that have blowdown valves on them. They are used exclusively to drain the boiler. All right. If you were to operate these blowdown valves while there's a fire in the boiler, that temporary disruption of flow in these tubes could cause them to overheat and could cause damage. All right. So the only blowdown valves that you and I will operate are the bottom blowdown valves, which are on the mud drum, like you said.
I
But
appreciate that.
the water walls will have separate headers. All right. That makes sense?
Mhm.
All right. And again, you know, if the inspector's going to beat you up on this, he knows that you're kind of green and you haven't been around a lot of boilers. So I don't think they would typically beat you up on that. So, but that's a good question. That's a legitimate question. And all right. You know, we'll talk about the sequence in a minute, but basically the valve sequence is you're going to open the inside valve, open the outside valve fully wide and close it. And then you're going to close the inside valve. All right. There's a couple other steps, but that's the sequence of the valves. All right. I think everybody understands the concept, the difference between a blowdown tank and a flash tank. The blowdown tank is vented to atmosphere and makes no attempt to recover the heat from the blowdown. It solely tempers the water, cools it before we discharge it to the sewer. All right. A flash tank, on the other hand, utilizes that low pressure steam that comes off the blowdown at other places in the plant. In this example, they've got the low pressure steam going to the DA and the hot water on its way to the sewer passing through a shell and tube heat exchanger, which is heating up the incoming city water. All right, does this all make sense to everybody? All right. So that's the difference. The procedure I told you, you're really going to need this for the oral exam, but they've taken parts of it and they'll ask you on the written exam. For instance, one of the questions is, what's the first thing you do when you blow down the boiler? Well, you can see on the procedure, find the true water level. All right. Or they'll say, when you get ready to blow down the boiler, which valve is open first? The quick opening valve. Which valve is open last? The slow opening valve. You get the idea. All right. There are no provisions in a multiple choice test to ask you procedures. All right. So the only way they know how to ask that is by asking parts of it. All right. There's generally only a few questions about pressure gauges. All right. Probably the most common one is, if you know gauge pressure, how do you convert it to absolute pressure? And what do you do?
At 14.7.
You add atmospheric pressure. All right. If they give you absolute pressure and they want to know gauge pressure, what do you do?
Subtract it.
Subtract it. All right. It's that simple. All right. The pressure gauge, the only other question they have is, how many do you need on the boiler? You got to have at least one. You can have as many as you like. All right. Probably the most mechanically challenging question is, how does a pressure gauge work? All right. And you all know the Borden tube. All right. All right. And if they ask you to describe a Borden tube, it's simply a hollow tube that's closed at one end. As pressure is applied, the tube has a tendency to straighten out. As the pressure is removed, it returns to its original position, all right, or shape. It's connected by linkage, the end of that tube, and to an indicator on a calibrated face. That's it. It's that simple. That's a board and tube pressure gauge, all right? They'll ask you, when do you need a pigtail siphon? It's anytime the pressure gauge is used on steam, all right? The high temperature of steam, will damage the board and tube, all right? Finally, a compound gauge measures both pressure and vacuum. This is one of the questions that they have as a trick question. They'll ask you, all right, can a compound gauge read pressure and vacuum at the same time? Of course not. You're either going to have one or the other, right? All right. They don't occur at the same time. All right. Any questions about pressure gauges? All right. Water columns and gauge glasses, pretty self-explanatory. The water column is attached to the boiler. It's always attached with cross tees. That allows us to have to clean it out, inspect it without removing the water column from the boiler. All right. If you have valves going to the water column, they have to be the type of valve that indicates its position. All right. So it could be an OS and Y valve. The stem is up, it's open. A lever type valve. All right. All right. Attached to the water column could be 3 valves known as tricocks. Tricocks were developed as a secondary means of determining the water level in the boiler. The primary way is by the gauge glass, all right? But if the gauge glass breaks, we got to have another way of doing it. Everybody kind of get that, all right? Both the water column and the gauge glass are equipped with drain valves called blowdown valves, all right? We're going to blow down the water column and the gauge glass at the start of every watch that we work. All right, that's important. All right, so you're going to do this at the start of every watch. All right, attached to the water column, that's usually where they attach the primary low water cutout. All right, so if you blow down the water column or the gauge glass, all right, the boiler will trip, all right, unless the boiler is equipped, as most of them are, with a low water disable switch. That cuts out the low water cutoff, gives you an audible alarm, but it doesn't trip the boiler. All right, does everybody kind of get that? How many low water cutouts are required on a boiler? 2 is the correct answer. What's the difference between the 2 low water cutouts?
One has to be manual.
The second one requires a manual reset. It will not reset automatically once the water level's restored. somebody physically has to manually reset it. All right. All right, good. All right.
What would be an example of a secondary low water cutout if the primary's in the water column?
Well, the second one could be on the opposite side of the boiler on a second water column. That's pretty common. It could be a different type. Remember, we talked about the probe type. All right. All right. Requiring a manual reset. So they got all kinds of combinations the way they do it. But once they train you on a particular boiler, they'll explain to you what you got. All right. On a particular boiler. But the question on the state exam is how many low water cutouts are required? And the inspectors love to ask you, what's the difference between the two of them in the oral exam? So you'll be ready for that question, all right? The second one requires a manual reset. If the gauge glass breaks and you have to replace it, all right? Couple things for you to remember. Everything here is going to be at what temperature?
Saturation?
Yeah, hot.
Hot.
To me and you. All right. Don't touch it with your bare hands. Everybody gets that, right? All right. Wear gloves. All right. When you first notice the glass is broken, which valve should you shut off first?
Lower water valve.
The lower water valve. That's because water flows which way?
Down.
Down. And that's where you are. Steam has a tendency to blow out or up. All right. So if the gauge glass breaks, close the water valve first. However, after you've replaced the gauge glass, you're going to want to crack the steam valve first to temper or warm up the glass before you put hot water in it. All right. Does everybody kind of get that? All right. I recommend you try to replace a gauge glass once in your career, but after that, don't do it anymore. Get maintenance or somebody that likes to do that shit to do it. All right. That way there, you'll figure it out. You'll understand that it's not real complicated. All right. But most companies, believe it or not, would prefer you don't work on a ladder when you're by yourself. All right. So the best thing that you and I can do is isolate the gauge glass when it breaks and wait for maintenance to come in. All right. Does everybody kind of get that? All right. If you like, you can be the hero and replace it. Now, some of you have done this, right?
Yeah.
Joe, you've done it. You've survived, right?
Yeah, like it's not hard. The hardest part, like I said last time, is just breaking the glass.
Yeah, cutting the glass, right?
Yeah, it's like a practice.
Yep, pain in the ass. But yeah,
Right.
If the chief likes you, the boss, he buys the glass already cut in the proper length.
We
But
get the big,
most of them are cheap and they buy it in a 5-foot lengths. So it has to be cut to size. All right. They do have a question on the state exam. When is a flat gauge glass used? That's generally reserved for pressures above 250 PSI. For pressures below that, we typically see tubular gauge glass. And again, blowing down the water column and the gauge glass is known as finding the true water level. This needs to be done at the start of every watch that you take over. All right. The inspectors love to hear that. And unless you plan on standing in front of the boiler the entire shift, This will guarantee to you that the boiler will trip if you get low water in it. That's what you want to know. All right. Is that stuff going to work when I need it to? Does everybody kind of get that? All right. Most firemen that I'm familiar with sit in an office. All right. And they take readings every couple hours. And that's about all you ever get to see them do. All right. Is that accurate, Joe, would you say? Or?
Not for mine, because we don't. We use a lot of ours is a condensing water plant, so we are the maintenance crew.
Okay.
There's not much sitting.
No sitting. And I know, Dave, you don't have any sitting around at your plant.
No.
You got to get those meatballs out, whatever the hell you're
That's it.
cooking over there.
I was laughing when you said call maintenance to change the glass.
You are the maintenance, right? Yeah, I'm in that old school group where there were two distinct groups, operations and maintenance. And operations always blame maintenance for screwing things up. And maintenance always blame the operators for breaking shit all the time. So yeah, it was a never-ending battle. It's nice to see that some of you are both, so you get to see both sides of the argument. But yeah, I don't think it's any one particular group that's breaking shit. I think it's just the nature of the business, you know. But anyway, maintenance guys tend to take a lot of shit, and of all the people that we tend to cut out, we try to get rid of maintenance guys first, because one of the things that you learn is that if things run good, maintenance guys are basically standing around, and nothing pisses off accountants or management more than seeing people stand around. All right. That's why they hate boiler guys. Whenever they get out in the boiler room, what's the boiler room guy doing? Nothing. All right. So you get the idea. All right. So again, try to familiarize yourself with this procedure. All right. The water column, all you got to do is open the drain valve fully wide and close it. That's because it's got fairly large connections to it. They're not likely to get plugged. The gauge glass, on the other hand, has needle type valves that are prone to getting plugged with sludge and sediment. All right. The gauge glass, you have to blow out the top and the bottom valves independently of one another to make sure that neither one is plugged. All right. And that's what this procedure comprehends. All right. Any questions about water columns or gauge glasses? All right. For tonight's lesson, there's a couple of pieces of equipment in the boiler room that are so standard they're actually in every single plant. The first one is what we call an open feed water heater. The open feed water heater, the definition of that is this: the steam and water mixed together. All right. They come in direct contact. All right. The only type of open feed water heater that we use today is known as a deaerator, or DA for short. In a typical DA, the water going into the DA is typically condensate returns. All right. The condensate returns are coming back from the plant. And let me just explain that for the firemen that really don't get this business. In the typical steam plant, you and I make steam in a boiler. We send it out to a factory and we send it to the various processes. Those processes use the steam it condenses and it gets picked up by a condensate pump. And that water gets returned to the boiler room as condensate. It goes into a DA tank. And that provides positive suction to the boiler feed pump. The boiler feed pump now puts that water back in the boiler. Any shortcoming, all right, in other words, I think everybody gets this. For every pound of steam I make, I need a pound of water, all right? If I get back less water than I send out, I have to make up water to the system. Typically, where I make that up is in the DA. All right, does everybody kind of get that? All right. Now, at a plant like Dave's where they process food, a lot of the steam, they don't get any condensate back from it. All right. So they need to use a lot more makeup water. All right. Does everybody kind of get that concept? All right. They actually use the steam to cook stuff. All right. And as the steam condenses, that condensate is lost, goes to drain. I don't know where it goes, Dave. Is that what happens basically?
Right.
Yeah, or vents out, to the atmosphere, right?
Exactly. We also use the steam for fire prevention too.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So you never get the condensate back from that either, right?
Right. So because cooking meat is a lot of grease and we catch fire fairly frequent. And when it does, if it trips off, we smother the fire with steam.
There you go. There you go. All right. Anyway, so the DA has condensate coming back to the upper section. Steam comes in, and what actually happens is kind of cool. All right. Everybody knows that a molecule of water is H2O. All right. Hydrogen and oxygen combined. All right. But our buddy oxygen, he loves water, but he can't combine because the conditions aren't right. There's no hydrogen. All right. So all he can do is cling on to that molecule of water. All right. Other non-condensable gases like CO2 also come along for the ride. What happens then is we put in our buddy steam, and the steam scrubs those molecules and the steam and those dissolved gases go out the vent, deaerating the water, removing all the oxygen. How effective are these things? Most DAs are 99% effective at removing oxygen because it's a pretty simple task. Does everybody get it? That oxygen is just clinging on to the molecule of water, holding on for dear life. All right. And the cool thing that happens is this. Because the steam and water come in direct contact, the water gets heated and it falls into the lower storage section. All right. That gives us a reserve of water that's always located higher than or above the feed pumps. So the feed pumps would be down here. The water would flow by gravity into the suction side of the feed pump. All right. That positive suction head makes these centrifugal pumps operate most efficiently. All right. They've always got water available at the suction. All right. Isn't this DA a wonderful thing? All right. All right. Now, so on the test, they're going to ask you, what 3 things does a DA do? All right. It removes oxygen, non-condensable gases. It heats the feed water, and it access storage capacity for the system. All right. What they typically ask second firemen is this: what 3 indicators would you like to have on the DA to help you operate it properly? All right. Well, you'd like to have a level indicator that will tell you how much water is in the storage section. All right. This is critical because if you run out of water here, what won't get any water?
Boiler.
Yeah, the feed pump and the boiler. All right. This is the sole source of water for the boiler. All right. Because I'm heating up the water, I would also like to know its temperature. So I need a thermometer of some type or a temperature indicator. And then finally, because I'm adding steam to it, I need a pressure gauge. All right. So I need to know the steam pressure, the temperature, and the level. All right. And that's it. All right. Now, for third engineers, they sometimes ask this question: can you name 5 reasons why a DA is a good thing? Well, you already know 3 of them. It removes oxygen and non-condensable gases. It heats the water, and it stores the water. It also provides positive suction head for the feed pumps. All right. And it's a fantastic place to add chemicals. All right. Most DAs only operate at about 10 PSI. Most boilers operate at 100 PSI. All right. What's easier to do? Pump chemicals into something at 10 pounds or 100 pounds? You get the idea. And any chemicals that I add to this water, where are they going to end up anyway? In the boiler, right? A closed feed water heater is a heat exchanger in which the water and steam do not come in direct contact. All right. The most common example of that is what you and I know as a shell and tube heat exchanger. All right. In the typical arrangement, the water is inside the tubes. The steam is outside the tubes on the shell side. And the steam, through a series of baffles, comes in contact with those tubes and gives up its heat to the water. We've been heating water this way for about 200 years. All right. So this is not a new idea. All right. All right. Plants have many shell and tube heat exchangers. This is also how we heat up fuel oil. We'll have fuel oil inside the tubes and steam outside. You get the idea. All right. All right. So when they ask you, can you give us an example of a closed feed water heater? The shell and tube heat exchanger is the most common. They'll often ask third engineers, can you name 2 types of closed feed water heaters? All right. And for years around here, one of the most common was what they called a surface condenser. A surface condenser has water inside the tubes and steam from a turbine on the shell side. All right. We use surface condensers to condense large quantities of steam, usually the exhaust from a steam turbine. All right. Now, many of you are probably thinking, anytime that I've seen a power plant, it's located where?
Near water?
Near the ocean. Even better, near the ocean, because this process takes huge quantities of water. All right. It takes about 100 pounds of water to condense 1 pound of steam. All right. So that's why you see these major power plants located next to the ocean. So they can utilize what's basically free water. All right. All right. Does everybody kind of get that? All right. You still got to run the pumps. All right. And the quantities are phenomenal. The Pilgrim nuclear power plant had 2 pumps supplying a surface condenser, 1.5 million gallons per minute. All right. That's a big pump. Those pumps ran on 13,800 volts. All right. All right. Yowie. All right. Here's the bad news. The federal government wants everybody off the ocean. They don't want us using the ocean anymore. And guess what Massachusetts has already done? We've closed down just about every single plant that utilizes the ocean. The only people left are the canal. All right, the Cape Cod Canal. Anybody familiar with that power plant? If you ever get on the Cape, you cross the bridge, you see the power plant. All right. But they're not long for this world. The government says by 2025, we want everybody off the ocean. Probably not going to happen to places like Seabrook. All right. The nuclear plants. But at Brayton Point, that's why we install cooling towers to get off the ocean, right? We built those at a cost of $500 million, $500 million, and then we shut the plant down 7 years later. So,
Well, we got our payment, our return on investment, so that's all that matters.
well, you know, all that shit is really accounting magic anyway, because depreciation actually paid for those cooling towers. You know, yeah. So it's all accounting magic, bookkeeping stuff that I don't really understand. But so that's it for heat exchangers, and that's it for boiler accessories. Any questions about these heat exchangers? All right, or open or closed feed water heaters? No? Any questions on anything we covered here? All right. Do you think I accurately covered everything that's on homework number 3? Did we talk about gate valves, globe valves, check valves, main steam stop valves, the purpose of a non-return valve? Anybody remember the difference between a slow opening valve and a quick opening valve?
Number of turns.
The number of turns it takes to get it fully open, right? 5 full turns, greater than 5 full turns, it's a slow opening valve. Less than 5 full turns, quick opening valve. Most quick opening valves open in a quarter turn. Right? How do you blow down a boiler? can't help you there, you got to remember that procedure. All right. How do you find the true water level in a boiler? All right. When they ask you, how does a pressure gauge work? What's the key word they're looking for?
Boarding tube.
A Borden tube. All right. If you can tell them a Borden tube, you got it half licked. All right. The difference between a blowdown tank and a flash tank.
Remember that one.
Blowdown tank makes no attempt to recover the heat in the blowdown. It simply cools the water before it discharges it to sewer. The flash tank tries to recover the heat, otherwise lost in the blowdown. A pressure gauge reads 200 PSI. What is the absolute pressure?
214.7
There you go. 214.7 what?
PSIA.
PSIA, absolutely. All right. How often would you test the low water cutout?
Once a shift at least.
Once a shift. And the really the answer they're looking for is at the start of every shift you work. All right. Everybody knows what an open and a closed feed water heat is. We just covered that 7 seconds ago. All right. All right. Where in the boiler room is a check valve required?
Between the feed water pump and the boiler.
Between the feed pump and the boiler. Excellent. And the question they love to ask, the boiler just tripped on low water. What will you do?
Shut it down.
It's already off.
Yeah. You got to add water to it, but you let it cool down.
No, you're gonna troubleshoot the cause of the problem, and you're immediately gonna add water to it. Would everybody agree with that? Yep. And once you've established the normal water level, what are you gonna do?
Restart the boiler.
Restart the boiler. All right. Guess what they're looking for when they ask that question? They don't want you to do what?
Just add water.
They don't want you to panic. They don't want you to call for help. All right. They want you to look at it logically, calmly, all right, without panic and say, I will troubleshoot the cause of the low water, fix it if I am able, all right, and then restart the boiler, all right. Typically, what might happen, well, maybe the feed pump tripped, all right. If the feed pump tripped because the breaker tripped, is that a pretty easy fix?
Pretty much.
Yeah, you can reset the breaker. In many plants, you can start the standby pump, all right. All right. What shouldn't you do is call somebody to help you. All right. Does everybody get that? Now, if you exercise everything that you understand, and maybe your problem requires an electrician, a maintenance mechanic, maybe you need somebody like that after you've exhausted all the things that you get, then you can call for help. Does everybody get that? All right. They asked the kids that graduated New Bedford Voc, the second fireman's class, what they would do. And the number one answer was call the chief, call for help. All right. You guys should be beyond that, right? Figure it out. All right. And guess who never likes to get a phone call?
The chief engineer.
That's right. Right. All right. All right. By the way, did anybody get those third engineer review questions? I sent those out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see those.
When did you send them out?
This afternoon. They look like this. It's not the most convenient format, but it's good enough for you to review and ask people the ones that you don't understand. All right.
Yeah, we got it.
Joshua, you got them?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. I'll also find the ones that got the answers with them, and I'll send those out as well. And I think this week I'll send out all the second fireman review questions, just so you guys can start looking through those. All right. Everybody happy?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
For the second fireman, I actually have the coolest thing. What I think is the cool thing. Let me pull it up here. If I can find it. Of course, guess where it is? It's over here. I did this for the second fireman. These are the questions that historically have been on the state exam by category with the answers. All right. So there's a whole section of boiler questions, a whole section of chapter 146 questions, superheaters, boiler accessories. You get the idea.
Wow.
So I'll send you that too. Most firemen tell me this document was most helpful to them, and it most closely represented or the state exam. All right. All the math problems that are on the state exam are on this math review. All right. So if math isn't your strongest subject, you can take a look at this and it'll help you out, or at least maybe cause you to remember, all right, what you already learned in the 4th grade, because that's the level of math. The problem with math is the reality is nobody does it much at their job anymore. And we tend to lose our ability to work shit out. All right. Everybody good? All right. Let's take a look at the quiz. And I'll give you an idea of what you're looking at. Where did I put that now? Oh, yeah. I sees it now. Let me put this back. Jesus. All right, here we go. All right, can everybody read this? Let's start with, hold on here now, 1 second. Steve Amigby, can you read question 1 and tell me the correct answer?
What can a second class fireman do? The answer is B.
Excellent. B, operate a boiler or boilers under the engineer in direct charge thereof. Dominic, question number 2.
A boiler operator with 2 500 horsepower boilers can B, not leave the boiler room while on?
Excellent. And why is that, Dominic?
Because they require continuous attendance.
Excellent.
They
Excellent.
require continuous attendance.
Excellent. Excellent. What the hell is going on here? Nick, I'm going to have to put you on mute. I don't know what's going on out there, but I'm going to have to put you on mute.
I think number 2 is trying to trick question.
Yeah.
I say that because we have multiple boilers. They add up to more than 500, but they're all on separate headers.
Yeah, you guys are so unusual that, yeah, that's the most bizarre setup I ever heard in my life. All right. Why you would even do that?
They did it because they don't want to have continuous attendance.
Right. Yeah, you did it to circumvent the law.
Yeah, they did.
Right? Yeah. But if one of those boilers is broken and you need to feed steam to that process, you're screwed.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, who did you beat? You know, but thank you for pointing that out. That is a good point. All right, Nicholas, how about question number 3? All right, why don't we skip Nicholas? I think he's having technical difficulties. All right. Number 4, Tommy Medeiros.
How you doing? How do we know a boiler has been inspected?
How about number 3?
Number 3 or number 4?
Number 3.
A boiler room with 500 bhp boiler requires continuous attendance?
Nope. It's actually right below the category. It's non-continuous. All right. Remember, non-continuous is 251 to 500. Continuous is 501 and above. All right. Number 4, Kevin.
How do we know a boiler has been inspected? D, boiler has a valid certificate of inspection posted.
Excellent. That is correct. Number 5, Dave Boyd.
How often should boilers be inspected? Every year, internally and externally. C.
Excellent. We're on a roll here. Joshua, number 6.
Stand for lockout tagout.
Lockout tagout is correct. Very good. Joe Lane, number 7.
Which of the following is not on the state operator's logbook? You go to the next page. C, contractor on premises.
Contractor on premises is not on the state logbook. Good. All right. Excellent. Number 8, Greg Lovett.
The equipment transforms water into steam by the application of heat. A boiler. B.
A boiler. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Number 9, Richard Piper.
How often can you apply to take the written exam for second-class fireman? Every month?
It's actually every 60 days. So D is the correct answer. All right. Let's see. Who didn't I call on here? Well, let's go back to Steve for question 10.
What is the greatest heat loss in a boiler? C, heat loss up the stack.
Heat loss up the stack. Excellent. Number 11, Dominic.
Where are the products of combustion in a fire tube boiler? A, inside the tubes.
Inside the tubes is correct. Jeff Lopez, are you here? All right, Nicholas, I'll give you another shot. Number 12. All right, Tommy Medeiros, number 12.
Which type of boiler is equipped with stay or stay bolts? Is the B fire tube boiler?
B, fire tube boiler is correct. Kevin Shea, number 13.
Where will you find scale in boiler?
You want to think it over a little bit?
Oh, I said B, near the steam outlet.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. How about D, below the water line?
Right.
All right, Donovan, how about number 14?
How is moisture separated from steam in a fire tube boiler? Dry pipe separator.
Excellent. B, dry pipe separator. Dave Boyd, number 15.
A SACON separator works on which principle? Impulse reaction, centrifuge force.
Centrifugal force. Very good. All right, Joshua Estrada, 16.
What is the minimum size of a round manhole? A, 15.
Yep, 15 inches in diameter is the minimum size. Excellent. Joe Lane, number 17.
Are dual pressure controls allowed on a boiler? No.
No, they are not. Excellent. Greg Lovett, number 18.
The longitudinal joint on a boiler is found running the entire length of the shell of the drum.
Shell or drum. Very good. Excellent. Richard Piper, number 19.
Which type of valve offers the least amount of resistance to flow? Gate valve.
B, the gate valve. Excellent. Back to you, Steve, for number 20.
The part of a boiler with water on one side and the product of combustion on the other side is defined as part of the boiler with the water on one side and the product of combustion on the other. I don't know, I'll take a guess, but I'll take D. Boiler heat recovery.
How about C, boiler heating surface? That is the definition of boiler heating surface.
All right.
All right. Dominic, 21.
Economizers and air preheaters are examples of A, heat recovery equipment.
Heat recovery equipment is exactly right. Nicholas, can you hear me and do 22?
I think you got him muted, Tom.
Yeah, but he can unmute himself, can't he?
I think you muted him.
Yeah, I can't. I don't see how I can do that. Let's see. No, he's got to help me out here. All right, Tommy Medeiros, how about we go to you for number 22?
I think you got the one with all the answers now.
Yeah, I can't.
Throw that out there.
That's not good, huh?
I missed it, damn it. This valve allows, it's 22, right? This valve allows flow in only one direction. Check valve. B.
Check valve is correct. Beautiful. Kevin Shea, 23.
What is the purpose of the main steam stop valve? I would say, what is it? A, isolate the boiler for cleaner maintenance and inspection.
That is correct. Good job. Donovan, number 24.
OS and Y stands for outside stem and yoke.
Outside stem and yoke. B is correct. Dave Boyd, number 25.
This device measures absolute pressure. Barometer. Item C.
C, barometer. Very good. Joshua Estrada, 26.
What is the purpose of a tricock? A, determine the water level in boiler.
That is correct. Joe Lane, 27.
The gauge glass breaks. What do you do first? B, close bottom water valve.
Close the bottom water valve. Excellent. All right. Greg Lovett, 28.
What device prevents the boiler from firing dry, low water cutout?
C, the low water cutout is correct. You guys are on a roll. Richard Piper, 29.
After replacing gauge glass, which valve is open first? What's B?
Top steam valve.
Top steam valve.
That is correct. Excellent. Back to you, Steve, for number 30.
The deaerator is which type of feed water heater? The open feed.
That is C, open feed water heater. That is correct. Dominic, 31.
A pressure gauge range should be B, 1.5 to 2 times the safety valve set point.
That is correct. Excellent. All right. Tommy Medeiros, 32.
Diagonal stairs are used above the tubes and refer to boiler because they are stronger than true stays. E?
Oh, actually, it's C. They allow access for cleaning and inspection. Kevin Shea, 33.
Which of the following is not a function of the deaerator? C, store feed water.
No, it stores feed water, but you're close.
It adds oxygen and non-condensable gases to the feed water.
That's right. It doesn't do that. It removes those. Very good. Donovan, number 34.
Purpose of the water column is to none of the above.
It's actually A, dampen the movement of the water in the gauge glass. It reduces the turbulence. And Dave Boyd, you get the last one.
All right. Why would the DFS suspend, revoke your fireman's license? C, incompetency and untrustworthy.
Excellent. Any questions about this quiz? Did anybody miss any of these?
Just number 9.
Number 9. How often can you apply to take the written exam for second-class firemen? Every 60 days. Remember, what's not important here is your grade in school. What's the objective of this course?
That's the test.
Pass the test and get the license. All right. All right. Any other questions on any of these quiz number 1 questions?
Wouldn't that be pass the tests, plural?
Well, you got to pass the written to get to the oral. So I don't know if you consider that 2 tests. I guess you would.
I do.
Yeah, but if you don't get by the written, then
You don't
didn't
get by
pass
the oral,
test.
you're still
Yeah.
at the same place.
Yeah. Actually, in the last 10 years, I've only had about 3 people pass, not fail the written on the first try. They ended up getting a license anyway. So, all right. Any other questions? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mail this out tonight. You can do it whenever you feel is proper. Tomorrow, you'll get the video recording of this class. So if you want to review that before you take the quiz, by all means do so. The only thing I ask is that you get it done before next Wednesday. All right. Other than that, enjoy the 4th of July weekend. Remember, there's no school on Monday, so don't look for me, and I won't look for you. All right. I'll probably get arrested. They're starting to bust people coming back from New Hampshire with fireworks. All of a sudden, why that's a big deal, I don't understand. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you a week from tonight.
Hey, Tom.
Yes.
If you do get busted, you need to call someone for bail money. I'm here for you, buddy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think that's such a low level offense that they let you bail yourself out. Although they caught a guy today, he had 100 grand's worth.
Wow.
So that's just more than your casual neighborhood bringing fireworks, right? So
that's border pyromaniac.
right. Yeah, I mean, I've always spent more money than I thought was sane, but never approached more than a couple $100. And all right, enjoy the 4th of July, and I'll see you on the other side.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
Tom, I have a